lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a fun hashtag that was created by Rimmerhaven, and it is the hashtag Scooby Decks, and it is a hashtag that she created in anticipation of the new Buffy the Vampire Slayer tarot deck that is released by Insight Editions. And as soon as I saw this, I knew I had to jump on it because Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of my all-time favorite shows when I was growing up. I watched it religiously from middle school through high school. I have a lot of fond memories surrounding the show. I was a little bit obsessed with it when I was in my preteen, teen years, so it's fun for me to join in on this. So basically what she did in her hashtag is she took the main characters of the show and their love interests, if you will, and she paired a deck with them, okay? And this deck is to kind of embody their energy, their personality, their interests. It could be something that they would use themselves if they were tarot readers, or it could just, just embody kind of who they are and their energy as a character. So the first character that she had in her hashtag is Giles, Rupert Giles, and he is Buffy's watcher. And he's kind of like her guardian, he looks after her, he teaches her. He's a very intellectual, wise, bookish person. He's very much into research and literature. And so for that reason, I chose the Tarot of the Divine. Now, aesthetically, I know that this doesn't scream Rupert Giles. And if you know the show, which you probably do, or you wouldn't be watching this to begin with, it's not something you would look at and immediately think Giles, right? Because it's bright, it's colorful, it's kind of cartoony. But hear me out, okay? This is the reason that I chose this deck for Giles. This deck focuses on myths, on legends, on folklore, on stories from multitudes of cultures. It focuses on deities. It focuses on creatures. It focuses on the same kinds of things that Giles researches in his books, he's all about reading up on myths and legends and folklores and creatures and deities and superstitions and, how that comes into play in Buffy's life, because it's his job to help her navigate the obstacles she comes across, the creatures and the predicaments she finds herself in when she comes across a creature that is new to them, and they hit the books for research, right? And there's all of these characters in this that bring that to mind for me. They're from around the world, just different stories and folklore and all kinds of things in this. And there's stories attached to each one of these cards. They're all different stories from all around. And for this reason, this is why I chose this deck for Giles. This to me embodies his researching aspect, his bookish aspect, his diving right into the myths and the legends and the creatures that they face, and finding out all the information that he can about them. And this deck really brought that to mind for me. So this deck is my pick for Giles. Now, the next prompt that she had was for Buffy's character. Now, when I think of Buffy Summers, I think of a girl who is very protective and strong and hopeful, and she's kind of, you know, bouncing back and forth between trying to be a normal girl and being the vampire slayer. She's kind of in this space where she is thrown into a world at a young age and kind of has to grow up really fast, right? She faces these unbelievable things, right? That most normal kids her age wouldn't have to deal with, right? So for this reason, I chose Tarot in Wonderland. Now, the reason that I think of Alice when I think of Buffy Summers is because Alice was a kid, right? She was a child, and she was kind of thrown into this fantastical world, okay? She really didn't have much control over it, and Buffy really didn't have much control over it either. Alice was thrown into this land with strange creatures and strange tasks that she had to complete and strange experiences, and it wasn't fun a lot of the time, and she struggled a lot of the time. And that reminds me of Buffy in a lot of ways, because she was thrown into this as a child. You know, she was put into this strange world rather suddenly, and it was either sink or swim, you know. She had no choice about it, and Alice really didn't either. So they're similar in that aspect to me. And the world in which Buffy lives in, with vampires and werewolves and witches and monsters and hellmouths and nightmarish creatures and all kinds of other things. I mean, in Alice's world, these creatures are foreign to her, are strange to her. They're things that she wouldn't expect or ever dream of, you know, in like the normal world. People wouldn't expect to see frogmen and rabbits in suits and talking playing cards and this and that and the other. And so she's kind of just thrown into this place where she's in a world that other people don't know about. And in Buffy's world, very few people know about it. Most mortals in Buffy's world, they just live their lives, you know, blissfully unaware until something tragic happens. And so in this world, in Alice's world, normal humans are blissfully unaware. So in this way, I feel like they're similar. And you know, Alice has to battle too. She has to fight her way through these obstacles she faces, just like Buffy does. And sometimes Alice feels hopeless, just like Buffy does. But Alice pushes through and perseveres, and Alice is brave and Alice is strong, just like Buffy. And that is why I picked Tarot in Wonderland to represent Buffy Summers. And the next character in this hashtag that we're going to talk about is Xander, Alexander Harris. Now, Xander is very supportive. He's goofy, he's lighthearted, he has a really good sense of humor. He tries to make humor out of every situation that he comes into, just to kind of lighten the mood for everybody. Even in the darkest moments, he finds some sort of way to make a joke. So I've chosen the Halloween Tarot for Xander for this reason, because this deck, at least for me, embodies that kind of lighthearted, goofy sense of humor, right? it's a deck that's full of fun. It's full of, mischief. It's full of lightheartedness. It's full of childlikeness. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of Xander, is because he's kind of like that. He's immature. He's fun. He's quirky. He's goofy. And like I said, he has a very good lighthearted sense of humor. And when I use this deck, that's the feeling I get from it. That's what I'm looking for when I turn to this deck, is that lighthearted, goofy sense of humor. Because even though this deck, reads very well, it is a supportive deck, in that it gets the message across that you need to hear, but it does it in a lighthearted way. And that's kind of like Xander. Like, he will tell you the truth, okay? He will tell you when you're being an ass. He will be blunt about it, but at the same time, he'll follow it up with a joke, and he'll crack a joke, and he'll let you know, hey, we're good, we're fine, it's all good. I just needed to let you know, that make you aware. And so that's the kind of energy that I get from this deck. So this is my pick for Xander. So the next one in this is Willow, and she's one of my favorite characters because she evolves and changes so much within this show. I'm going to try not to give away very many spoilers, in case you haven't watched it for whatever reason. But the deck that I chose to represent Willow is the Practical Magic Inner Witch Oracle. And this is kind of on the nose for her, I feel like. She went through a transformation in the first few seasons where she started dabbling in magic, and she really started to come into her own, right? She started to explore witchcraft and magic, and really came into her power. And this deck reminds me of a deck that she would use, because it has witches symbols and things in it that witches use in their practice. And I look at it and I think, this is some of the things that Willow would use, or that Willow would do, or that she could relate to if she was a tarot or oracle reader. I feel like she would use this deck in her own practice. It does have very much witchy energy, and the further on in the show that she goes, the more powerful she gets, the more comfortable she gets in her practice, the more experienced she gets in her practice, the more strength she gains, and it's beautiful to watch her transform. And this deck gives me that. It also has very empowering messages, very supportive messages, and encouragement and magic, and all of those things. That describes Willow for me too. She's very supportive, and she's a very good friend, and she's very, very much like the energy in this deck, to me at least. And so for that reason, this is the deck that I chose to represent Willow. Okay, and then the next one is Cordelia Chase. Now, I will be the first to admit, when I first started watching Buffy many moons ago, I could not stand Cordelia. Could not stand her. Thought she was awful. Hate. However, she really evolved during the show also, and really came into her own. And she became a character that I really kind of felt sorry for, and then kind of learned to respect and appreciate as the show went on. So for this reason, I'm using the Rebel deck. Okay, this is Cordelia Chase. And this is because Cordelia is very blunt, okay? She's very sassy. She's kind of vain. She has absolutely no tact whatsoever. She says what's on her mind, and she doesn't really care whose feelings she hurts in the process, okay? And like, this deck is that, okay? This deck is very blunt. This deck is very straightforward. This deck has no tact whatsoever, okay? This deck will call you out on all your shit. This deck does not give a damn if it hurts your feelings or not. This deck gives off major Cordelia Chase vibes to me. And like Cordelia, she can be a really good friend when she wants to be, when her friends really, really need her, when she can tell, hey, they need me, or hey, something's wrong with them, or hey, I can help in this moment. She steps up. She does. Like I said, she does evolve as a character. And this deck gives that kind of support too, but it gives it in the kind of way that Cordelia would, where she's being supportive, but she's also being very blunt about it, you know? So for this reason, I pick this for Cordelia Chase. Okay, so the next deck, or the next character, sorry, in the prompt or hashtag is Oz. Now, Oz was Willow's love interest at one point in time, and he's a very loyal, you know, kind of cool, gentle kind of person. He's quiet. He's in a band. He's a really interesting character, and I picked the Crow Tarot for him. Okay, now excuse me, I picked this one to represent Oz because Oz is loyal, and he remembers things very well, okay? He has a very long memory, and so do crows, okay? Crows can remember people. They can recognize people's faces. They've been known to bond to humans and have very loyal relationships with those humans if they've treated them right. And they're really cool animals. I don't know if you know anything about crows. If you don't, I suggest you do a little research because they're fascinating animals. They really are. And because of that, I feel like this gives off kind of Oz energy. Now, true, Oz is a werewolf in the show, and these are birds. Not exactly the same thing. However, I didn't really have a deck that gave off werewolf vibes, and I didn't have a deck that made me feel like it was giving off the cool traits or qualities that Oz has, or the loyalty, or the way that he bonds to people, because once you're Oz's friend, you're his friend, okay? And he does remember, when people do him wrong or his loved ones wrong, he can hold a grudge, and crows are very much the same way. So for this reason, I thought that this would be a good pick for Oz. All right, so the next one is Tara, and Tara is another one of my favorite characters. Tara is very shy, and she's kind, and she's soft-spoken, but she's also really quiet, and she has like this kind of brightness to her. And for that, I'm choosing the Blooming Cat Tarot. And this is why. Tara reminds me of this deck because this deck it's gentle. It's kind of shy and quiet, you know. It takes you a minute to dive into it. It takes you a minute to understand it because I mean, it is RWS based, so if you know the meanings, it's pretty easy. But at the same time, if you're just looking at it and trying to read it, and you're not used to this kind of imagery or cats or whatever, it can throw you off because they don't really have expressions much on their faces. And I'm the kind of person, I like decks where the people in them are very expressive. Like, I like being able to look at their faces and see the emotion on them. So with this, for me, I have to dive a little deeper. It's a little bit quieter for me. I'm not used to, you know, animal decks, cat decks, whatever. But this deck is bright. The flowers on it, you know, it reminds me of springtime. It reminds me of joy. It reminds me of lightheartedness. And it can be really gentle and really kind because it just gives off that vibe when you look at the cards. Like, I mean, look at that. It's so Tara for me. Because she's that way. She's kind of shy, kind of quiet, you know. You don't always know what she's thinking. She always has this, you know, this demure kind of look on her face. And these cats, you can't really tell what they're thinking either. Like, Tara's full of emotion. But once you get to know her, she really blooms. She really opens up, you know, and she was really, really good at helping Willow find who she is and was supportive for her and was everything Willow needed. And because she was also a love interest of Willow's at one point in the show. So because of the brightness and the kind of soft-spokenness of this deck and just how beautiful it is. I mean, that is Tara's personality, is bright, you know. She's flowery, kind of like a flower child, you know, like her style or her personality. She just seems to me like the kind of person that would love this deck. I feel like if she read tarot, this would be the kind of deck that she would be drawn to because it fits her personality, in my opinion. And so that is why I chose this deck for Tara. And the next one is Anya, or Anyanka, I think is her full name. May be pronouncing it wrong, but anyway, they call her Anya, and she was a vengeance demon, I believe. And she's very much a cheeky type of person, okay? She was a demon, she got turned human, and she was really kind of struggling with that, you know, because she'd spent like 1,000 years or something like that being a demon, and now she's trying to be human and live in this human body and this human world and this human life, and she struggles with it. And she does not have a filter on her mouth, okay? She takes things very literally. She's brutally honest, okay? Like, she is brutally honest. And for that reason, I chose the Deviant Moon Tarot. So the Deviant Moon Tarot, you know, it reminds me of Anya because these creatures are kind of freaky looking. They're kind of nightmarish. And if you'd ever seen Anya in her demon form in the show, you'd understand, okay? Because her demon form was scary and nightmarish and creepy, and that's what this deck gives me. And this deck's also brutally honest. I use this deck for shadow work a lot, and it cuts like a knife sometimes, okay? It's brutally honest. But it doesn't do it to hurt me, and I don't think that Anya is brutally honest to hurt people either. That's just how she is. That's her personality. I think it does come from a place of caring and love and support. And I think that this deck comes from a place of caring and love and support. It just is the way that it delivers it. It's its personality, much like Anya's. And she's very cheeky, and this deck is also very, very cheeky. And so that is the reason that I chose this deck for Anya. Alright, and then we have Dawn. Now, Dawn came into the show a bit later on. I think it was season 5 as Buffy's little sister. And I had mixed feelings about this at first because I'm not big on change, and child me really didn't like this bratty, immature, awful little girl, because that's how I felt about her when I was in like 6th grade. But coming in and, you know, changing up the whole storyline pretty much. But Dawn is very immature. She's very, because I mean, she's a kid, right? She's Buffy's little sister, and she's very emotional. She, you know how it is when you're a teenager or preteen or whatever, and you're stuck in that phase of where you want so much to be grown up and to be taken seriously, but you're not, because you're still a kid. And she's very unique because she is, she was the key, basically, which I'm not going to go into all of that because I don't want to spoil it too much for you if you've not seen it. But basically, she came into existence as a key. She was made into a human and given this life and all these memories and everything as Buffy's little sister. And so she's trying to navigate that, right? She's trying to come to terms with that. And she's going through things that other kids her age aren't going through, but she's also dealing with everything that everybody her age is going through. So it's like a double whammy on her, right? She's got a lot she has to deal with. And I chose the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot for Dawn, and I did this because this deck is unique like Dawn, and this deck is youthful like Dawn, and this deck is emotional like Dawn, okay? And the characters in this are so young, childlike, doll-like, and even in the happy cards they look a little sad. And Dawn struggles with her emotion, okay? She's often quite sad or quite angry, and it comes across in these cards like that also. Very sad, emotional, you know, and it puts you into a place where it makes you feel all the feels, right? It makes you feel all the feelings, even the feelings you don't want to feel, you know, trying to face your demons. But it's like these little kids facing their demons, these little childlike figures facing hard truths. And I mean, I mean, come on. It's very much gives me Dawn energy for this reason, right? She's got to try to navigate this space with all these hard things and all these hard truths she has to deal with about herself and her life and her past and her future and where she fits in the world. She has to try to deal with that, but she's still just a kid, you know? She's still just a kid trying to deal with this. So that is why I chose the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot for Dawn. Now the next one is Angel, and Angel is one of my favorite characters in the entire show. I also watched the spin-off series that he got, which aptly named Angel, but he is Buffy's first love, and deep and romantic and very dark, and Angel is a very tormented, agonized soul, right? Because he's a vampire with a soul. Most vampires don't have a soul, and that's why they can do all the bad things and feel no remorse. But Angel feels remorse for every bad thing he's ever done because he was cursed with a soul. So he really struggles with that, and for that reason I've chosen the Dark Mirror Oracle, because this deck feels like it's calling out to your torment, like it seems very dark. It's very deep. The messages I get with this are very, very deep. It makes you go to those dark places, and some of the faces and the characters on there are very romantic looking, and but it's a tortured kind of deck. Look, it just seems like Angel to me. It feels like Angel. It feels like it's kind of like beating you up when you use this deck, right? It beats you up. In all the best ways, though, because sometimes to get through healing, you need difficult messages. You need to face those hard truths. You need to face up to what you've done and to your past and what you're struggling through. You need to learn to deal with it, and this deck helps you do that. And I feel like this is just giving off so many Angel vibes because of that, because he's so tormented and he suffers so much with everything he's done and all his choices and who he is and his place in the world as a vampire with a soul who can't be with the love of his life and all of these other things. So for that reason, I chose that to represent Angel. And last but most certainly not least is Spike. Now, Spike is a very interesting character. He is also a vampire in the show. He is very edgy, okay? He's badass. He's very assertive and very sexy. And he just gives off that bad boy, vibe, devil may care kind of vibe. And for that, I chose the Tarot of Vampires, because I know it's on the nose for him, but I feel like this is his world, right? Even when he got a soul, he was still very much embracing his vampire, right? He feels like this aesthetic to me. He dresses kind of like this, especially when in the 80s with the black eyeliner and the trench coat and the chains and everything. I love it. But anyway, this deck is Spike. It embodies his energy. It embodies his world. The people that he would hang around with in earlier seasons are like this. And it's dark, it's sexy, it's edgy, it's kind of badass, it gives off that energy, and it's assertive too. So it reminds me so much of Spike. I had to choose this for him. I don't have another deck in my collection that would even come close. I know several people probably chose this for Spike also, but that's for a damn good reason, because this is probably the most perfect deck to embody Spike's energy that I've seen, or at least that I own. And for that reason, I chose this for Spike. And that pretty much concludes this hashtag. It was a lot of fun doing it. She does have another hashtag that goes over the evil forces that Buffy and the Scooby Gang face in the seasons. And that goes through, I think, seasons 1 through 7, all of the seasons. And I was going to do that hashtag too because I just love the idea of it. However, I couldn't find decks to match the energy of the big bad. That's the name of the hashtag, I believe, is hashtag big bad decks. If you want to look it up and watch that, I might link that down below also with Rumor Haven's original video for this hashtag Scooby Decks. I might link both down below, but I couldn't find any decks in my collection really that gave off the energy for all of the big bads, because I don't have a lot of dark kind of evilly feeling kind of decks like that. So I decided not to do that one, but I'm really glad I got to jump in on this hashtag. It was a lot of fun, and thank you to Rumor Haven for creating that hashtag. I had a lot of fun watching your video responses for it. And anyway, guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please click like down below, leave me a comment, and let me know if you would have chosen any of these decks for any of the characters that I did. If you didn't, let me know what you did choose or what you would have chosen if you were to do this hashtag. And if you know someone who's a fan of Buffy or tarot in general, please share the video. And also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe down below and click the little notification bell so you know when I post new videos. It's been fun, y'all, and as always, thanks for watching.